So it is my honor to introduce a fellow who has been here first as a guest a few times, and then last year he became a member and he re-upped his scholarship. And so we're going to have a listen to our friend Jorge Luis Garcia Ruiz, PhD, who has his doctorate in ancient world studies from the Complutense University. He's a master in archaeology from the Autonomous University of Madrid, historical researcher, specialist in Spanish history in North America, Misiones and Tradiciones. He says here he is Spanish by birth in Madrid and North American by adoption. So,
that's correct.
in addition to the book that he will be covering with us, he has several works he has written as well, and he brought some of these that I'm sure he will be glad to part with, as far as buying his books. Last month, he gave us all a stack of these periodicals, and I still have 5 or 6 copies for the taking. Okay, so if you've not gotten one, by all means help yourself. At this point, I will turn it over to our friend, our brother, Jorge Luis Garcia Ruiz.
So thank you, Joe. Thank you all to be here. Thank you for having me. I will give more or less the same presentation I gave last summer to the Laredo chapter. No, McAllen chapter? Fidel Santos. Laredo, okay. Sorry, I'm not with the Texas towns. And I was giving that presentation in Spanish, and this one is going to be in English. Okay, but the book is in Spanish. I'm working in the translation, but it's something that it's a very good book, not because I wrote it, but because it's a very good book. Okay, it's the one that is telling the story, the real story, in the documents. So before to do something, a translation that is not worth it, so it's better to take time and do something good for this, okay? So everything started with the investigation of the missions, the Mission Valero, and you are not interested in this because it's very technical. It's a book of the records at the Mission Valero, okay? So I started with these 3 books. Is the whole life in the Mission Valero. So we have like 1,600 people baptized, Christianized, marriage, like this one, Libro de Bautismos, and burials at the mission. So everything is recorded by the friars, every single date, every single name. And this book started giving me the idea that we have many things wrong in history here. And the result is this is other book, Presidio. And Presidio is about documents. It's frozen.
No, there it is.
Okay. So too much. Presidio is about documents, and we have documents. This is not a book about to copy-paste what other authors are saying. So we have too much about that, and you know that experiment in psychology that you have 10 persons in a line, the one is telling something, and when the information gets to the last, it's totally different. So I said, okay, we need a restart, start from scratch again. I took a notebook in white, empty, and I start with the documents, and just the documents. And we have documents here. Okay, it's not working, the pointer. Documents from the very important archives that we have, Archivo General de Indias in Spain, the Archivo General de la Nación in Mexico, many other archives like the Archivo Franciscano, la Biblioteca Nacional de Mexico, who keep all those records, and we have a lot. So far, many of the researchers, many of the historians in Texas and in American history, they say too many times that there is no documents. Yes, we have like 90 million. Only in the Archivo General de Indias we have 90 million documents. And one of the documents you will see later has 4,000 pages.
Wow.
So Spain has the biggest bureaucracy that we say, even bigger than the United States. So there are a lot of things that here you can do in the United States today that is very easy, not bureaucracy, and you go to Spain and you need to pass documents and documents for many governments, different governments. So this is an inheritance that we have from the Romans, and Spain has a lot of documents. So you have to choose, and I choose like 200 documents on all of this. And I started the book. When I got like 900 pages of the book, I say, okay, it's too much. So where to cut? Impossible to cut, because many documents, many of the story that people that live in that moment told us is absolutely beautiful, and each one of those 25 chapters, more or less, is changing the narrative, the history as we know today, in many things. So I use a lot of different documents, okay, from many different, and even, for example, the Archivo Hispanic Archive of New Mexico. So not only the Spanish documents. And what I was saying is that we have too many American historians that say, okay, we don't have documents. And they, in some cases, out of ignorance, they write whatever. But sometimes out of interest. They wrote something different, something which is not the truth. Okay? So start from zero again. And we have documents like this one. This one is the 4,000 pages of the Oñate expedient. So 4,000 pages in this Spanish from the 16th century. So after 16th century, in 17th century, we start to see documents that has the same calligraphy that we use today. So if the writer is literate, so we can read that so easy. But sometimes in the people the people that write these documents in the 16th century, they use a different calligraphy, and so it's like you have to learn a new language, basically. Because I have no pointer, I don't know, it's not working in the screen.
It works on the wall, but not on the
Yeah, that's the point. Okay, so here you see Don Juan de Oñate. So documents, they don't have a photocopy printers in that time. So they use people writing. Normally, sometimes they were priests or friars, but regular civil people were doing around 6, 5, 7 copies of each document, like the photocopies today, right? And they use the signature is original of the person who is doing the speech, right? In this case, Oñate. So we have the Expediente Oñate in his own words. He was doing this, and this one is changing because in New Mexico they are like they have a big controversy between two groups. People saying that Oñate was bad, and people saying that Oñate was good. Well, I'm not going to spoil my book. You have to read it. But this book is changing narrative about that. And one thing, the only thing I have is honesty. To compete with the American historian. I am foreigner. I'm not speaking a good English, so it's difficult for me to compete with the American historians. And they believe more the American historian than a foreigner. And that happens a lot because they say, oh, look, this foreigner is telling us our history. Yes, because it's not your history. It's my history. This land was for 300 years part of Spain. And the 99+% of the documents were written in Spanish. So those documents that they don't want to read because it's in Spanish. And those documents are telling the truth. So I'm not a Spanish nationalist because by my career I used to step back one step just because they have to the whole picture, right? Because if you are, I'm not studying, for example, the civil war in Spain because I'm too implied in that inside that part of the time, so I cannot. So you have to be a good historian. You have to step back, and then you can have an impartial. And it's not good for Oñate. It's the only thing I want to say. Okay. So we have like 25 chapters, and each one is changing history. What I did was to copy, in some cases, the good original documents that I read. One of those documents is this one, for example, and it's recorded in cursive. The cursive is the exact reproduction of the document. Yes, we have 4,000 pages, so, and my book only has 388. Not everything on this 4,000 pages is interested, right? So we have to, in some cases, just to cut the important paragraphs, and in another case, for example, is you see on top the standard printed letter. This is my words. So in some cases, I have to make a extract of the documents because the people writing those documents in that time weren't so expressive or weren't so literate, and there are a lot of mistakes. So sometimes you need to make an extract of the document, and sometimes just to copy the document because it's beautiful and it's absolutely amazing. Right? So this is how the work is made. In other cases, I'm archaeologist by career, so I'm very visual, and this is not because it's English. This is because it's my way to do things. I need to put pictures. I need to put maps to get people in the place. So this is a book that is a history book, but it's at the same time like a novel. So the main characters of this novel is telling the history by themselves. So we need maps. And the maps, in my vision, should be very similar to the original maps. They use just lines and some letters. And I didn't want a Google map here, beautiful with full colors. This is not about this book. This book is about ancient documents, and we need ancient maps. And we have a lot of maps like this one, made by myself, explaining what happens, where the things happens in each chapter, okay? And we have also documents, original documents that are beautiful. And we have, for example, this one is a depiction of the La Guerra del Mixtón. It's the first war that the Spaniards have with the natives north of Mexico. Because we know, okay, the conquest of Mexico, and at the end, everything was conquered. No? So the conquest of Mexico City, which is the conquest of Mexico, when they say the conquest of Mexico, is the conquest of Mexico City from the Aztecs. But we have like 300 years of fights, of problems, that took the conquest north of Mexico City until Santa Fe. So we have, I'm thinking in kilometers, so in miles, we have like 1,500 miles from Mexico City to Santa Fe. So it's and each step of this distance took a lot of blood, a lot of work, a lot of this. So I got 900 pages, and I say too much, I cannot. So I divided my book into volumes. This is the first volume, and I stop, I'm sorry, in 1700. And I'm sorry because in 1700 is when the Texas thing happens. After that. So all of this is coming in the second volume. But this first volume is telling a lot that what happens in La Nueva Galicia, in La Nueva Vizcaya, in the Coahuila, Chihuahua, all of this. So it's giving you the idea of what is coming in the second volume. So we have this, La Guerra Chichimeca, okay? And what we see in this document are the native allies of the Spaniards. And you can see the Otomís were the, come on, just a little bit. No, I'm not seeing it. You are seeing it?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Right there. This is a flag, right?
Yeah.
So this is the Burgundy cross. So the Otomís were waving the Burgundy cross, fighting the Chichimecas. Chichimecas, Huachichiles, in this case is the Zacatecos. So there were very aggressive natives north of Mexico City. They had the right to be aggressive because they were defending his life, his land, and all that. But at the end, we have the idea, so far, that the Spaniards came in a boat, just make everything, and after 300 years, the Mexicans they kick off the Spaniards, and they were back to Spain in a boat. And no, this is not what happens. Very few Spaniards came. They made like a coup to the Aztecs, and in that way they get the power on the Mesoamerica place. And they have a lot of allies that help them to Christianize all of these people. So when we say, for example, in New Mexico that the natives expelled the Spaniards from New Mexico, then we have to read one of the documents that I have in the book saying that out of the 2,500 people, Spaniards expelled from New Mexico, only 20 were from Mexico City or from Spain. The rest were natives Hispanized. So the narrative is changing a lot. Just if you just do a first read of the document and try not to be contaminated by the other authors, just like this. So we have a lot of documents like this, and for example, this is a map. In that moment, the maps were like books, okay? You were reading the history by draws, not by words. And don't ask about the rigorosity of those maps because you cannot find, okay? So you have to interpret. In this case, we have some Villa de la, and the name is called, but we have San Felipe around here, and you need to interpret the document. But this is important because this is a depiction of the first Presidio soldiers. And we have the idea that the Presidio soldiers is those guys were in the Cuera and for 300 years, right? And no. So first, the Cuera is something that they started to wear at the end, so 1750s, around there. Before that, they wore something called cota de malla. And cota de malla is the metal jacket, metal thing that they wear, made by rings, you know. And you see the horses wearing a cuera to protect them. So if some of you have seen a picture of the corridas, they used to have a horse, right, with someone with a lance. This is exactly the same in the corridas. The horse is with like a blanket of leather protecting the horse, and they have launched like the Presidio soldiers. So everything is related. Those are the first. So we have wearing those helmets, classical helmets, and the cota. And maybe I have yes or not. Okay, let's go. So we have the plan of San Antonio in the left and Santa Fe in the right. 1767, right? We have the idea because all of these historians that the Spaniards had the Presidio is a fortress. Not. The Presidio is a group of soldiers. It's a company of soldiers they call Presidio. So don't relate the Presidio with a fortress. Many historians are making the same mistake, and we have the documents saying the opposite, that it is a group of soldiers. Like Granaderos, Presidio, and Presidio is a group of soldiers. Infantry using horses. It's not cavalry, it's infantry using horses. So from the very basic, we have a lot of mistakes. So the Presidio is not a fortress. We have the Presidio of San Antonio, and you can see how they used to do in every single Spanish town, new foundation. They put 4 stakes to make a square or a rectangle. And then they build the city around that square. It's the same in San Antonio. You see San Antonio in the left. So the cathedral is the F, right? And the Presidio barracks and all of that is the B. Why? Because the Presidio weren't just military. And this is another thing that they told us. No, they were military, come in here. No, this is the American way to do things. When the 7th Cavalry, they came to the west, they established forts because they were only military. But in the Presidio, they were families coming. They were people populate the territory and not just military. So they established a town. And what you have? Towns. You don't have fortress, you have towns.
What is A and C? What is A and C?
So what you have in A and C is part of the Presidio barracks and all that. Right?
What's the difference between A and C?
The A and C, I don't remember in this precise moment, but everything is from the Presidio. So one of the buildings is something that we call Cuerpo de Guardia, right? And the other part of the building is the jail, small jail they have. So all of this is, and around that square we have the 3 Spanish government that we have in any other Spanish town, even in Spain, right? Yeah, which is the ecclesiastical power, the civil power, and the military power. Okay. In this case, in the B is the military and the civil, because if you remember, the Canarios used the house of the governor as a cabildo at the beginning, right? So they didn't have a separate building, but we have that separate building in many other places, right? 3 governments, 3 different buildings around the square. This is the usual in a Spanish government. So we have this. This is the Presidio de Jalpa, and it's a fortress. Why? Because it's a mission. So this is one of those places that the mission and the Presidio use the same building. And
where's this at?
Jalpa is the Presidio and mission of Jalpa, Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So it's Mexico, and it's not something that you say, okay, this is very real. You have a small piece of paper and you do something that you have the depiction, but it's not exactly the same. That I don't know the word they use, but if I zoom it, so what this is a problem that we have, that many people didn't like what they were saying, right? And used to copy the document and change some things because match what the idea they had about the Presidio soldiers, cuera, okay? If I have the idea, the Presidio soldiers have cuera, and I am seeing that the Presidio, this Presidio soldier is wearing different thing, a quota. So they made a new document corrupting the.
The little soldier right there doesn't look like the quota, right?
Yeah.
I see that.
But the problem is that the quota started in 1730s, 1740s, 50s, and not in the 50s, 60s, in the 1560s or 200 years before. So people trying to, like you guys, to do your uniforms and all that, using those documents are doing something very bad, something very wrong. They get the wrong uniform, right? Reenactors. I forgot that. People trying to reenacting, if they are using the corrupted document, they have a out of era, just because some people don't like what they see. If you see, Cota de Maya. We have that uniform because the Cota de Maya was very helpful against the arrows of the Indians. When they started to lack quotas, because there weren't any artisans to make it again, to make it more, they started to use the cuera, because the cuera is the material they found in the territory. So deer leather and 7 layers of deer leather to protect them, like the Cota de Maya. So it's not main uniform. It's a substitution of the Cota, which wore.
We were talking about that before. This is very interesting because when we're trying to get our uniforms and everything, how do we know that we're actually looking at the right portrait of what their uniform was? Not knowing the education, the background that you have in the research, how do we know as just, regular Granaderos that we're doing the actual thing?
You need to read a lot of documents.
Well, we read. Okay, let me further. We read.
If you are patient, I will do it for you.
Your education is so up there. We read. How do we know we're reading the correct one or the wrong one? You would know, and we wouldn't. So this is very interesting.
Because everything has a chronology. Okay. Everything happens for a thing. So we have documents, census of Presidios, that saying, those census are saying, okay, the captain has 6 horses and has a cota and has a helmet and has, they were listing everything they were. And this is the captain and the last soldier, even the one that they condemned to serve in the Presidio, right?
So it wasn't just the drawings, it was the description.
Remember another thing, okay? That today you need a picture, a beautiful picture. What you do? You dress accordingly, right? If you are taking a picture of non-important, you dress like every day. And those are the picture of the time. So sometimes the artist is drawing something that he had in her mind, not the reality. Sometimes happen. Okay, because you are trying to do a piece of art and you need to be beautiful and you put the captain should wear a beautiful uniform, but the captain is receiving an uniform each 10 years. Imagine 10 years of uniform, of user's uniform. So what we see in Hollywood, those blue, everything beautiful, right? But this is not happening in the reality. They are through the desert, riding horses, and they are perfectly blue. So this is not what happens in the reality. So you have to have in mind that you have to transport yourself to that place, to that moment, and how you will do things. So in the case of the cuera, they are depicting them with a pañuelo. How we call it? A scarf below the hat, okay, below the hat. So they used to put here like they were kind of gypsies or something like that, right? Never happened. This scarf is to cover your mouth because you are riding horses after a line of 20 horses, and imagine that dust. This is for the dust. But people don't read the documents, and the documents are saying a lot. A lot. You cannot imagine. So we read the reglamentos, okay? And the reglamentos say each soldier need 10 horses and saddlers and lands and beautiful ties and blah, 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 blah. So that happens, and in 1734, in Los Adaes, in East Texas, they had the last supply column 3 or 4 years before that. So the soldiers were wearing buffalo hides, because it was a freeze winter, and the kids and women were inside the houses because they don't have correct dresses to get out. And so the document is saying you a lot. If you stick only to the reglement, everything is beautiful. But why we get out that reglement? Because things are not being like you want to be. Okay, you are the commander. I don't like these guys. I need these guys dressed beautiful. I read the document, the reglement. The reglement is not telling you how they did before, and nor how they did after. Okay, because you can follow the reglement or not. So in documents, stick to the reglement is not the best option. You need to stick to the rest of the documents. So we have this. Zoom in. It's a cuera that never was here, never was there. That cuera, because it's a cota. And people are using this. Jose Maria Bueno, which is an author already dead, and with very respect, but he changed history. And we are finding this a lot. Okay? This is the cota. And this is the cota that many documents are saying. For example, Alonso de Leon, the captain, wearing a cota, and he loved the cota, saying in the document, I love my cota, and my cota saved me several times from direct shoot, arrow shoots. Okay? Yes?
What is it made out of?
This is,
Chain
yes, it's metal.
Okay.
You can find it in the History Museum in New Mexico. And this is an oddity. This is the only cuera that I've seen. And I've seen a lot, and all of them are replicas without no real value, because they are not following the document. So the only one is this one.
See, I see on the left, I see a lot of that, but I don't see the one on the right.
It hasn't lasted, it was passed from one person to one person.
I
They didn't
know.
have the artisans to recreate it, so they had to go with the new model.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking now.
So they use a substitute material, which is the cuera.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy, that's nice, I like it.
So the Indians, we had a lot of Indians helping the Spaniards. Imagine that the soldados de cuera in that time were like a tank, right? 200 kilos on top of or 400 pounds on top of the horse, and try to ride that horse. Okay, so they have a lot of help from Hispanized Indians, because that was the conquest. The conquest was made like in Mexico City, with 500 people from Cortés and thousands of native allies, and that is a thing that kept going through the centuries. So we have in the field 12 or 20 soldiers company of Presidio, and they were helped by maybe 200 or 2,000 natives that they call flecheros. Why? Because they were using arrows. So this is the long bow that they were using at first, because there were not many horses. So not all people had a horse, and the natives had the right to use horses, of course. It's another thing that is against the documents and the idea that they were forbidden to ride horses. No, this is a lie. Because when the Spaniards need some help from the natives, they gift horses to the natives. So at first they were infantry, the flecheros. They were walking close to the soldiers, and they use a longbow. Why? Because you have the aid of the soldiers. Because you can in vertical, you can shoot in vertical, and you go from one side to another. But the problem is that when those natives start to ride horses, you cannot pass the longbow from one side to the other side of the horse. Yeah, and you need a lot of tension because it's very, very high, very long bow. So they started to use a powerful short bow and the chimales. Chimal is the defense on top, and the adarga is the Spanish from Arab origin on the bottom, right? Because the short bow, you can shoot in horizontal, and then you can pass from one side to the other side of the horse. And then,
Is that a shield or that part?
yeah, this is a shield.
The bottom is
The bottom is a Spanish from Arabic origin. And what's good because it has that form in the middle, like like a heart, traditional heart, and you can put the arquebus. You are protecting yourself with the shield, and in that part you can put the arquebus.
This is probably not relevant, but I always wonder when I see the movies and stuff with bows and arrows. How many arrows do they normally carry? I don't even know if you would know.
Yes, arrows, many.
How
In
many
some,
how many do they, because, I was just curious because, you keep seeing, they're shooting arrows and eventually it would run out, but I don't know how many arrows they can carry.
well, we have documents in this book. For example, they siege the house of Alonso de Leon in that downtown south of in Monclova, in Cadereyta, and after the battle, they collected like 5,000 arrows. So and there were like 1,000, 2,000 Indians sieging just the houses of the Capitan Alonso de Leon. Yeah.
Rather than 6 bullets from 6 years they kill.
Did the Indians use saddle? And I don't mean leather, I mean horse tails for bridles, deer skins for...
Sellers. At when they were Hispanized, yeah. When they get Hispanized, Christianized, they use the saddles. Yes, because they were riding like Spaniards. They weren't.
Their own saddles, not the same as the Spanish saddle.
No, because it's a expensive things. I had access to some wheels, and in some wheels you get the prices of everything, and they were even letting the descendants, right? Letting the descendants in that wheel some things like soap. So everything was in those wheels, everything, and even the saddles. And the saddles is something expensive. So they get out in an expedition with 5 horses each one, but only 1 saddle. Okay? Because it's very expensive, and imagine that Marqués de San Miguel de Aguayo get out from Monclova with 5,000 horses for 500 soldiers, so 10 horses each one, to East Texas. 2 years later, when they come back, they were walking.
They were walking?
Yeah,
The horses are warm now.
yeah.
It was Ice Age, there was a severe winter, and then it was hard to feed them. It was a foot
Yeah.
of snow, knee-deep snow, bushes and cactus, they would step on it because they didn't know it was underneath the snow.
Would they purposely shoot the horses too, or no?
And they eat the horses.
They would, right?
Great.
Yeah, and also the natives. So everything is surrounded by mythology, right?
At Mission San Jose, in the museum area, they have an ardilla, if that's how you pronounce that shield, and it's real pretty. It was like, oh, look, there's one here.
So many of the soldiers were natives, Hispanized natives. If not the first generation, they were mestizos in the second generation. They receive a very small wage, so they didn't have money to buy the horses and to buy the power and to buy everything, and then put plates on the table. So in many cases they were very, very poor equipped, and they used to use oh my goodness, to use the native shields and the arrows. We have Presidio soldiers using the arrows and the bows of the natives. Why they were so good riding horses? Because they were small, thin, and not adding a single pound to the horse.
Yeah, they have no wool uniform.
Yeah.
So once they ride to the safe place, there is no option for the soldiers with 200 or 400 pounds on top of the horse to catch them. So this is against the annihilation of the whole population of natives in America. Why? Because this is Presidio de San Antonio de Béjar. And we have 72 soldiers. And 72 soldiers to take care of the whole Texas. And 34 of those soldiers were taking care of the caballada, which is the horses. So when you get out to control the territory and to keep it in peace, you get out 20 soldiers. Now explain me how 20 soldiers could annihilate millions of natives around Texas. So they were negotiating a lot. This is what happens.
Yeah,
This is what happens.
in real life, right?
Yeah. The Comanches gather is the word? Gather 4,000 warriors. The Apaches, when they were all together, more than 2,000. Now imagine 12 guys riding horses.
No, with all that stuff on them.
So even the common sense is against many of the mythology that we have in our books and our reading books. Many of the soldiers, this is documents coming from the mission, from this, okay? These three books are the exact copies of the books that the Archdiocese of San Antonio has in the archives, right? And it's saying, this one, Pedro de la Cruz, soldier, de Nación Tlaxcalteca. Okay, it's saying on top, de Nación Tlaxcalteca. Padrino Marcial Gabriel, indio Tlaxcalteca, del pueblo de Parras y soldado. So those are not Spaniards from Madrid or from Sevilla coming here in vacations. No, they are Hispanized natives, mestizos a lot. And we have, for example, in Texas, that the census is saying 3,000 Hispanic living in Texas. How many pure blood Spaniards we had? The governor. Maybe the Canarios, maybe. The rest were people from the place. Because none of those rich people in Spain, they were coming here to the frontier to deal with Apaches and Comanches and all of that. So everything is changing history. So this is the three axes of the three caminos: Camino Real de Santa Fe, Camino Real de Texas, and Camino Real de. And this is a picture of Taos that you have also in my book. As I tell you, this is 25 chapter book that is changing from the very basic, the history, how is in our textbooks, in the schools or everywhere. Santa Fe, this is the Bajada, If you see on top, there is Santa Fe, and in this part is Albuquerque. Right? So everything about this is in my book. So now imagine the problem that they have in many occasions was the dryness of the territory. But in some cases, like in Texas, this is the San Juan Bautista, San Bernardo mission in the Rio Grande. Okay, this is the Mexican side of the border. And the problem in Texas is that they had too much water. And what happens, not for you, but this is a presentation that I given in Spain, and in Spain they have the idea of Hollywood, right? They cannot depict Texas because Texas is full changed by the human hand. So when they say, okay, we are here in Texas, and they are shooting the record in New Mexico or in Arizona. This is not Texas. So they have the idea that Texas is that desert. Nothing is in. And all those, going with the wind and all of that. And the problem the expeditions had is precisely the too much water that they have in those rivers crossing the Trinidad, the Guadalupe, that today we see, oh, this is just a creek. Yes, it's a creek, but when we have a flood, what happens? That they need to stop for 1 month, waiting for the stem to get down. And this is one thing, I'm going to give you this. I was studying French documents, Spanish documents, and English documents to get this one. And this is a map, very broad map of the French, right? Because we have the Mississippi right in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. And there is no Rio Grande. What is the Rio Grande? We have the Panuco, but we don't have the Rio Grande. So that story about the Cavalier de la Sal going to Texas and crashing against the coast, right? This was purposely to try to conquest the New Spain for France. Because the king of France, he believed that with just 200 French, they could conquest the whole New Spain. And this is a plot that I discovered crossing information in three different languages, getting that where La Salle crashed the coast in Matagorda Bay, where he thought that the Mississippi was. He was 4 or 5 years before coming down the stream for the Mississippi, right? But he got a brown map. And he thought that navigating the stem, up the stem, he will go to New Spain and Mexico City and all of that. It's a crazy thing. Where he crossed the coast.
So he'd go up each one of those rivers and he'd run into the Tejas Indians.
Yeah.
And then his people who were with him would say, you're leading us on a wild goose chase. You're saying we're going back to Canada, and here we go, right back south to our old, where they were at.
So here the point is that we were thinking that Cavalier de la Salle just get lost and get to the Matagorda Bay because he get lost, and not was intentionally to go because he thought that the mouth of the Mississippi were in Matagorda Bay.
So he just claimed wherever he thought it was, and he just claimed it. And that's how we went.
And the documents is saying the point is that we know the history just with one document. Okay, but we don't get the other documents telling the same history, the other point. When you put everything together, you get to those conclusions. Right? And I'm ending. So I'm going to pass all of this. And this is a problem that we have with many of the Hollywood. As I told you of the Hollywood films, as I told you at the beginning, I was trying to be fair and to be non-chauvinist with the writing of this book. So document, and I added very few things. So mostly is what the documents are saying, what the people living in that time said about something. So, for example, in the case of Oñate, we have bad things to tell about Oñate. But we need to recognize that the people coming here, everything in North America wasn't a paradise. They were living very not, how to say that?
A difficult life.
Yeah, very, very difficult life. And something that the historians don't want to accept, don't want to talk about, is that north of Mexico City and in Mexico City, people were eating each other. Mm-hmm. And not just how they try to say, no, this is ritual. No, this is not ritual. And we have a lot of documents saying that there were Pacific natives, a lot. Most of the natives were Pacific, and they were being, sorry for my English, I'm trying to do my best.
You're doing good.
They were being slaughtered by aggressive natives. And if we start to recognize the truth of the documents, not just hiding, because I'm not comfortable with this, I'm just hiding, you cannot get the truth of history. So this document, for example, is depicting the first moment when the Europeans noticed the cat of the cabelleras.
Hairline? No. Hairline? No.
Yeah, the cat of the scalp.
Scalping, yeah.
Scalping, yes. So now it's a stem of people saying, no, because the scalping is something that the French and the British were teaching to the natives. In where? When? 17 whatever? 1550. 200 years before, the Spaniards coming here already recorded because they were, my goodness, these natives are doing this. We have those documents. And this is a corruption that we have from Hollywood. And we need to fight against this. We have this movie, you know, Apocalypto.
Yeah.
Is violence from the minute zero to the end.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know why.
I watched it twice. I still don't know why.
Natives were doing this, yes, but natives were also good people. Mm-hmm. Okay? And houses are very similar to the Roman houses. Mm-hmm. So a square with an alberca in the middle. A pool in the middle. Yeah? So, very similar. They were a different culture. So, you cannot expect to see those natives wearing the rich dress, French dress, and all that. No, they were their own dresses, right? But they were good people. But why we have this? Because they are foreigners for Hollywood.
Yeah.
They are Mexicans. And to Mexicans, you can do whatever you want. Then we have this. Why we have this? Because they are Americans. So why these two different stories? The natives were the same, south and north of Rio Grande. They're doing the same things. So they are trying to say they were angels. The Apaches, really? The Apaches? Or the Comanches? They were killing every single person crossing the Apache territory. Mm-hmm. And very horror, in a very horror way, okay? But they are like angels. So we don't need these lies. We need the truth. Because with the truth, you can start. And they were killing buffaloes to eat and to get hides. And they weren't asking permission to the buffaloes, or this is Avatar film. Okay, this is Cameron, right? This is the director of Avatar that he has in his mind, but this is not about natives. Natives were normal people. Okay? And I'm about to finish. This is the last one. So people asking, what Spain bring to America? What's the difference? Let me help you. None. So the ones in the green, yellow one is people from Coahuila, natives from Coahuila. The one on top are Spaniards from Asturias.
I was saying that picture on the right has children and one other one doesn't.
Well, yes, but
That was just no
no,
significance.
no significance. So the point is that we were saying lies. We were lying about this because we need to match a narrative. The U.S. government need a narrative, what they do to the natives. And they are blaming Spain that wasn't here in that moment because the genocide for the natives was something in the second half of the 19th century. Spain wasn't here. So many things happened under the Spanish conquest, yes. But we have a genocide coming in the second half of the 19th century. And Spain wasn't here. Spain bring Spain. And all the towns, the native towns, were they had alcalde and alguacil. They had their own alguacil, their own policemen. So if you are enslaving those people, you don't give them the right to have alcaldes or to self-government. So we need to, and this is what I can say about the book. You have all of this, but it's in Spanish. So the English version is coming maybe at the end of the year. I don't know. I want to do something good, and that takes time. Okay, and that's all.
Have about 4 or 5 hours and you don't have anything to do.
We're gonna go to his house.
You need to sit down with this man. He's just information. Thank you again, Walter. We appreciate it.
And doing in English. If I do it in Spanish, you need a whole week for me.
For next month, ladies and gentlemen, our speaker for next month is someone who was referred to